is Commission and Regulation 0707, Amendment 6, Upland Game and Furbearer Season Bag Limits. Shawn, Espinosa.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. This is Commission Regulation 0707, Amendment number 6. As in the past, we can approach this from a species by species perspective or hunt by hunt perspective, kind of make things go a little bit more smoothly, so motions are a little bit more comprehensible. So if you'd like to start with sage grouse, we can focus on that one and then move on to turkeys.
Go ahead.
Okay. So our only change for the upcoming 2010-2011 sage grouse season would be to close Unit 032, which is the Pine Forest Range in Humboldt County. And we ascribe to certain guidelines for population management for sage grouse. And this particular population, one of the criteria that we use is counting at least 100 sage grouse males on leks in the springtime. That population has been over that for the last few years, but this year it was not, so we're recommending closing that season.
You want to do these all at once or what?
I think do them all at once, huh?
Let's do them all at once, and so go ahead and just keep going.
Okay. For wild turkey, we are proposing to close all fall hunts due to low turkey numbers in many of the areas that we had fall hunts, and also because it's an either sex hunt to protect adult hens and try and aid in recovery of the turkey populations for the benefit of spring hunts. For the spring wild turkey hunts, we are recommending, this is, I'm on page R3 now, recommending not eliminating Unit 181 and 182 of Churchill County, but actually changing that to a permission slip type hunt as in Paradise Valley. We are recommending closure of Unit 103 in Elko and White Pine counties due to low turkey numbers. That population is particularly affected by wintertime snow levels. There has been some feeding of those populations in the past, and currently some of that's not going on, so populations aren't quite as sustainable as they were before. Units 223, 231, 241, 242, 243, and 271 of Lincoln County. Recommendation is a reduction in turkey tag quotas from 20 resident and 2 non-resident to down to 10 resident and 1 non-resident for each of 3 hunting seasons. Recommendation for Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area only of Unit 203 is change in that season structure from 4 seasons down to 3, an expansion of those seasons from 10 days to 15 days, and then a reduction of those quotas from 10 resident and 1 non-resident down to 5 resident and 0 non-resident tags. Next page are for the general spring hunt, which is in Unit 202, 203, 204, and 291. It would not be eliminated, but it would be changed also to a permission slip type hunt as the Paradise Valley hunt. And you can see at the bottom of R4 the season structure for 202, 203, 204, and 291 of Lyon County and the special regulations associated with that permission type slip. Page R5, you can see the special regulations and season structure for 181 and 182 of Churchill County. Both of those areas, turkeys occur predominantly on private lands. Page R6, recommended change in the Paradise Valley turkey hunt, change the shooting hours from 1/2 hour before sunrise to 1 p.m. Actually, that would be changed to 4 p.m. on a daily basis to be consistent with other spring turkey hunts. And the Furbearer season's on page R7.
Just do turkeys?
Turkeys.
You want to stop there?
Stop there before we go into Furbearer. And let's discuss the sage grouse and the turkey, and then we'll get into Furbearers. Let's talk, any commissioner have any questions before I turn it over to the public? Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the reason why these populations are declining? I mean, has that been determined, or some good guesses, or?
It's various factors. It's somewhat drought related, particularly in Mason Valley. We've had some drought periods there that have not bode well for production. Some areas we have a few issues with predation. Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area, it seems to be more of a predator sink. Got a lot of issues with skunks, badgers, mountain lions even down there. Also raven issues. Some of the other turkey areas, you know, some areas have actually expanded turkey populations, and we have open new units. Some areas where we thought they would do well but haven't, it comes down to habitat issues. If we don't have, you know, good wet springs and over consecutive years, then it can certainly affect production. But in some areas too, the turkey habitat isn't all that great. Nevada's a pretty dry state. So turkey populations, you know, ebb and flow. They seem to do well immediately after releases for the next couple of years, and then they sort of level out. So my concern is that we don't get into a situation with turkeys where we did back in the 70s with pheasants, where we're just releasing birds for hunters to take. It's a put and take situation, so we definitely want to avoid that.
Commissioner Cavan?
So in Mason Valley, in the fall hunt, we're going from 10 tags to none in each of those 3 hunts. What was were we seeing declining success as well, or?
Yeah.
Do you have a rough idea what it was?
Well, we were going from about 40% success down to in the teens in a lot of cases for the fall hunt.
I guess my question is really, do we have to completely close it and lose that opportunity, I guess?
Well, tag numbers are pretty low as they were.
It was 10.
And because, like I said, it was an either sex hunt, we thought, and most of the take during the fall hunt was hens. So we would err on the side of conservatism and try and conserve those adult hens for the next year.
It might be noted too that most states that have turkeys, when they have a declining population, the first thing they do is eliminate the fall season, and that added mortality on the females.
Okay, let's, before we do anything, let's open this up to the public on the turkeys and the sage grouse. Anybody?
Mr. Smith, Mr. Dixon. Is that listed?
Our only comment, Washoe County supports the recommendations of the department.
close the public comment, bring it back to the commission. You want to vote on the turkeys and the sage grouse at this time? Any other questions of Shawn?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Capurro?
you ready for a motion?
Well, ready for a motion then.
I move that we approve CR 07-07 Amendment Number 6 relative to upland game, sage grouse and turkey hunts,
As what? As recommended by the
as
department?
recommended by the department.
Second. We have a motion to approve CR 07-07 Amendment 6, upland game, sage grouse, and turkeys as proposed by the department in a second. Anybody have any question? If not, I'll call for the motion. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Go ahead and continue with the Furbearer, Shawn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only changes to fur-bearing situation would be for an extension of the bobcat season by a day to close on a Sunday. So the season would run, instead of December 1st through February 19th, it would run from December 1st to February 20th. And then the bobcat sealing dates would change as you see before you. There would be, for Elko County, first Wednesday in March. That's in compliance with the law to have a sealing date 10 days post-season. Some logistical changes for Eureka and Ely, moving dates from the last Tuesday in February to the last Wednesday in February for Ely, and from the last Monday in February to the last Tuesday in February in Eureka, and that's just to allow the person that does the bobcat sealing to go from Eureka to Ely. In Fallon, again, the first Wednesday in March, you see there in blue, would be the 10-day postseason requirement by law, as well as Las Vegas, Panaca, Tonopah, and Winnemucca.
Have we got any questions? Okay, anybody from the audience want to?
We had first be Don Moldy, followed by Joel Blakesley.
Yeah.
Here come the donuts.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Don Moldy, Reno. Thank you, by the way, for getting me on the road quite early today. Get it home. I do appreciate that. I'm a little bit of a disadvantage. If I could ask a question, when can I expect to see the new numbers for the last trapping season that are not printed yet or published on your website? I don't have the new numbers, so I'm sort of going from last year's stuff, but since the length of the season being recommended is essentially the same, I'm assuming the numbers look about the same. So with that proviso, let me just briefly read you my short letter I've prepared for your proceedings today that I'd like to have entered into the record. This letter is to renew my long-standing concern about the lack of a science-based, biologically based management program for bobcats in Nevada. During the 30-plus years that I have followed this issue, the department and the commission has chosen to use the setting of season length as the sole and allegedly sufficient management tool to protect bobcats from trapper excesses. Last year at this same commission meeting, I presented data based upon department numbers showing that the setting of annual season limits over the past 30 years, including small adjustments in length, shows no correlation to the number of bobcats which will be killed during the next trapping season. Season limits and small adjustments might be effective if they were operating in the range of a few days instead of the customary few months. While the department has faithfully collected biological data from dead bobcats, it has taken no specific action based upon that data to limit kills, protect females or juveniles when needed, or to offer any other form of protection to the animal, even when it says it has concerns about the status of the bobcat. Instead, the department pleads helplessness, claiming that fluctuating pelt prices, as well as unpredictable weather and gas prices, represent obstacles to management, which the department lacks resources to predict, comprehend, or combat. Trappers claim that they have no impact on the bobcat population, but what else would you expect them to say? Even though they have killed over 15,000 bobcats in the past 5 years, including as many females and juveniles as they can, and even though neither they nor the department, nor me for that matter, has any idea about the base population of bobcats in this state or how it might fluctuate by region. With respect to juvenile production, which was the basis for last year's departmental concern, and perhaps this year as well, last year at a juvenile to adult female ratio of 0.15, which was present, would represent about 14 juveniles per 100 adult females, a statistic which would create something more than some concern among department staff if that ratio existed within mule deer or pronghorn herds within this state. I also question the fiduciary judgment of the department and the commission in allowing a valuable publicly owned wildlife resource, the bobcat, to be killed without limit, such that in some years, some trappers kill over 100 bobcats each during a trapping season. How can this situation be justified on fiduciary grounds, let alone scientific or biological grounds? It seems to me, Mr. Chairman, that a remedy for this pathetic situation is long overdue, and that the general public deserves better from the department and the commission. Thank you.
We had Don followed by, or excuse me, Joel followed by.
Thank you, Don. Yes, excuse me. Don, we got a couple of questions here.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Wait a minute,
Commissioner McBeth.
Thank you, Chairman. Don, you litigated the issue of bobcats back, I believe it was in the 90s, correct?
No, it was in the early 80s.
Early 80s, wow, so a long time ago.
Yes.
And I have not seen, I did not read the decision. I don't know the outcome. I do know that it was found that the department was, doing the proper, or at least met the requirements, and made a showing that they had a biological basis for what they were doing. And I'm wondering, has something changed since then that you don't think, or is this the same argument that you made back in the 80s when you litigated the issue? I'm just trying to understand if something was being done back in the 80s when you litigated the issue that is not being done now.
Well, yes, thank you for the question. It's a very good one. Back in the early 80s, what was at issue in court was simply our request for a preliminary injunction against the next trapping season, until the department could show us in the court, if the court agreed with us, that there was some better management system than simply setting a season length. And the judge, the first time we went to court, Judge Bowen, he said, well, let's give him some more time and see. 3 years later, we came back to court. Judge Whitehead looked at our stuff. Took about a month to make his decision, which for him was quite unusual, and ultimately went with the department. Since then, what's changed is we have another 25 years worth of information. And we have again now a second period of time when the department and the commission have shortened the bobcat season because of what is apparently some concern about the bobcat. What the concern is and the level of concern, I have no clue, since the department never sets any goals, any objectives, sets any numbers, does nothing. It simply shortens the season slightly as, I guess, some expression of concern. But I showed you last year, and I have with me the same graph I brought last year, which shows you that there's a 1% correlation between setting season length in terms of days and the number of bobcats to be killed. There's no connection with the setting of a season length and how many bobcats the next season will be killed. So that's the big difference between the early 80s and now, is that you have 25 years worth of data to look at to see whether your management tool, the setting of a season length, in fact does anything. And my contention, which I could demonstrate, I think, with your numbers, is that it doesn't.
Don, stay up there. You asked a question about the last year's harvest. You don't have the numbers. Does anybody have the numbers, or are they not available then?
Not available right yet.
Okay, the answer is the numbers are not available.
I
but
figured that.
I had to ask for it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, could you direct the department to give them to me when they are
Well,
available?
they'll be available to the public,
You'll be the first one we send them.
I appreciate that.
Well, we know that, Tom. So
but that's the reason they're not available yet, Don, so I wanted
we'll
to,
make sure he is.
I wanted to find out. Okay, thank you.
Joel Blakesley, followed by Paul Dixon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Joel Blakesley, Nevada Trappers Association. Don Moldy and I've been doing this for about 33 years, so I'll give you a little, maybe answer some of Mike's questions. The first time I met Don was in 1977, right here in Ely, and he made the prediction that if we continued the bobcat harvest at the levels that we had been doing it, that they would be extinct in 3 years. We went on for the next couple of decades to double and triple that harvest, and obviously they didn't go extinct. I was also present at the lawsuit in 1985, and we're doing it the same way as we did in 1985. I think you've got a graph that Don put out, and I've looked at it. The irony of that graph is it probably makes a stronger case for having no season at all than it does for shortening the season. It's never been demonstrated that our activities have any detrimental impact on bobcats whatsoever. I'm not sure that we have any impact on them, quite frankly. With that said, our board of directors has agreed to go along with the department's recommendations. I talked to Kevin about the data. He says that it's showing a slight increase in recruitment of juvenile animals. It's not dramatic, but what I'm seeing is just as anecdotal evidence. It's tremendously green over the entire state. That's what makes bobcats as prey-based. If we have rabbits, if we have mice, if we have birds, we're gonna have bobcats. And in the last 2 weeks, I've driven this state from one end to the other on I-80 and Highway 50. Last night I came over, it was a full moon, which is usually a time when you don't see much in the way of prey animal densities, but I saw a lot of rabbits coming from Reno to Ely, which is, you know, it's an informal transect, but I know around my house, and I live out in the country, I'm seeing 10 times the rabbits that I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. You know, we've had a tough drought, but it appears that we've come out of it tremendously. I mean, I was rained on halfway across the state yesterday. Summer rains are such an important thing for our habitat. I'm thinking we're going to see a boom here in the next couple of years in the small animals and the predators as well. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Paul Dixon, followed by Rick Smith. Only ones with cards for this issue.
Paul Dixon, Clark County. Since we didn't have a quorum, the members of my cab who are part of the Trappers Association wanted me to represent their personal view up here, which is they supported the trapping and sealing date parts of this regulation, and I just wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Smith's last card on this issue.
Rick Smith, Washoe County Cab. First, for the record, Washoe Cab supports the recommendation of the department for the fur-bearing season. Second thing, just to bring to your attention, I guess, is we had at our meeting Monday, a group called Trail Safe that came in and asked to be put on our next agenda item. They have asked that the Wildlife Commission put a banning on trapping in the firearms congested area of Washoe County. We've had this issue a few years ago. It comes up every so often. We're a pretty congested area, and the Trappers Association has worked really well with these groups, conservation groups, if you call them, to try and come to agreeable terms, and we have faith that that will happen again. Trish Swain, we did tell her we would put it on our agenda for the next meeting, but our take on this pretty much, I think, I can't speak for our cab, but is we're going to count on the Trail Safe and the Trappers Association to come to terms and then come to a recommendation to this commission. So I know, Chairman Lent, you're aware of this, and some others are, but some of you might not be, and I just wanted to make you aware that this is kind of an issue that's going on in Washoe County, and it will be coming to your attention probably pretty soon, next few months, I would imagine. So, okay.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak from the public? If not, I'll close the public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Howell?
Ready for a motion?
No comments, I guess we are.
I move that we approve Regulation 07-07, Amendment 6, Furbearer seasons and bag limits as presented by the staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Capurro to approve CR 0707 Amendment 6 as recommended by the Department for Fur-Bearing Animals. Everybody understand the motion? Any questions? All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Let's take a 10-minute break.